Hi, my name is Iris. Currently, I am part of the in-house staff at the Omni Champions Gate outside Orlando, Florida. I've done a bit of everything from theater to radio, television, live events. I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts in theater, and my first job was in radio, so you never know where you're going to end up in this. I'm part of this community because I believe in education, and during this time, I believe everyone can improve their knowledge to get more gigs and do more things and just be more flexible in the new whatever it is we're going into. But I appreciate you're here. I hope you learned something and have fun watch the show.
Hi, my name's Dave Node, based out of Charlotte, North Carolina. I fell in love with technical theater in high school, and that led into mixing live sound at theme parks and doing lights and media at the time, which was 35mm slides. I also got to work on concerts for bands like Chicago and the B-52s. I started my first sound and lighting company back in 1986. Over the past decade and a half, I've had the privilege to work for mostly Fortune 100 end clients. I got to travel all over North America and Canada and Mexico and the Caribbean and even Hawaii. I find myself doing main screen switch, camera switch, running media servers, doing projection, all sorts of V1 positions. With a bachelor's degree in technical theater design, APS and ACE certification, Christie projection switching certifications, and recently Barco Level 2 certifications, I get to design and execute some really challenging and fun projects now. During the pandemic, I dove into the social media side of our industry. I've written articles on virtual solutions and facilitated owner sessions for Avixa. During one of my weekly Zoom panels and cocktail parties, I was reintroduced to Omar, who turned me on to AV Educate. It's been a pleasure to participate in the AV Educate Facebook page and to share my experience on the AV Tech Talks panel. I love supporting my industry colleagues with education and mentorship during these challenging times. Thanks for tuning in.
AV Tech Talks, House Rules. Join us on AVE Live, Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Join us on Zoom. Watch on Facebook or YouTube from the AV Educate page, or register as an attendee for the webinar. Live Q&A. Our guest will lead us through a guided demo and conversation about tonight's topic. We will take your questions and comments throughout the show. Don't wait until the end. Get your questions and comments in early to shape the conversation. We don't know it all. We're human and don't claim to know everything. We may demonstrate or discuss one way to do something, but that doesn't mean it's the only way to do it. If you've found another way that is easier or yields better results, please share with the community so we can all learn together. Follow AV Educate. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and have a library of content on YouTube. Join us on Zoom for AV Tech Talks and to become a member of our community on Discord, where the conversations, the learning, and the sharing continues. We are where you are. Place your phone over the QR code to come learn more about AV Educate.
Hey, welcome back to AV Tech Talks. How's everybody doing tonight? It is Monday, so we're here. We're here to chat with all of you. Tonight's going to be an open forum discussion. We had something planned for you, but we're going to change things up just a little bit because we're all AV people and we can adapt and change things on the fly. So here we are. We got a great panel together, and we're gonna just chat. You guys are gonna. We need your questions. We need your comments. We need your topics. So, what does everybody want to talk about tonight? One thing I do want to say hello to everyone. I want to say hello to Omar. Omar's working tonight, so you might see him, in a mask. He's actually on site somewhere.
You'll see that angle, that good one with the double chin going on. That'll just be, that'll be me most of the night.
Nice.
That's what the beard's for. It hides double chin.
Yeah, I can't grow a beard like you, bro. I got like bald spots and stuff.
The biggest problem, I think, is we're not going to know if you're trying to talk to us and you're on mute because of the mask now. So we'll have to figure that out. But I just want to also welcome Shrikant and John Middleton and Andrew Broughton, Iris and Dave. Dave, it's been a while, I think, since you've been here. Welcome back. So
Thanks.
Hopefully you're well rested today.
Yeah, I am.
For our panel. Great. So yeah, what do we got? What do we want to talk about? I actually saw a question come up on Facebook asking about what do we think hybrid events? Hybrid events is getting thrown around a lot as things start to open up and come back. And what does that actually mean? And what is that looking like? And how are we preparing? Are we looking at doing more of a web audience first, or still the live audience first with like a camera in the back of the room like we used to? What are some of the things maybe we're looking towards or thinking about moving forward? Anybody have any inklings?
Yeah, I could jump in on that a little bit. So I'll say two things. The first one is, if you guys aren't following what Live Nation's doing right now, Live Nation just teamed up with, and we did a post on it on Facebook. I think it's Verp is the name of the company. So they just did a team up, and Live Nation's pretty much saying if you're in any of their venues and you're an artist, they're going to stream it out. And they've already done the infrastructure for it, and they have the platform for it it's going to go to. So that's already a thing happening. If you guys know who Live Nation is, they're huge. They have a bunch of venues. It's like 100 venues, something like that, 100 plus. The other thing too is most of the shows I've been doing live, like this one, for example, that I just did, there is always a streaming guy. So for the last, I would say 4 shows I did live where I was in a non-streaming position, there was still a guy streaming at this location or at the location I was at. So it's definitely happening. And it seems like it's just a feed out of the cameras. It's another person just doing video switching to a live stream. And they have some separate content, something like, like you'd have, stream starting soon, welcome, break stuff here. It's got its own VO. So it's a separate production. It's feeding off of the other crews. And so it's one guy, like it's been controlling it all. So that's what I've seen on my side. I definitely think it's going to be a thing. I'm already seeing it. I don't know if anybody else can attest to that on shows they've done. And Dave, I think you said you did a show too. There are a couple of shows that are like that, or you're doing all of it in-house and you're doing streaming as part of it, right?
Right. Yeah. I think you can look at the house of worship market, how they've adapted to, most churches are hybrid at this point, and they're streaming their service. And some of them are, our church has really gone hog wild with it. They've got 6 cameras and, a little sky cam that scoots across, wire on the back of the church for jib like shots. And they've got a whole portal, and they've got a team, 3 volunteers chatting with people in the lobby, in a space dedicated for hybrid, virtual production. So they've got a whole team. They've got a pastor. They've got on staff full time, just dealing with the virtual side of things. They call it their virtual campus. And I think churches are going to be a good incubator for some of the stuff that we're going to see in corporate. But right now, I think it's just, who knows? Everyone's going to be looking at the audience counts on the virtual versus the in-person. And I think it's going to start off with just kind of going back to business as usual with, let's take the iMag and throw it on a stream. But then they're going to see their virtual audience kind of dissipate because that's not going to be interactive enough. And those that choose to stay hybrid are going to have to step up their game and make some more dedicated, virtual content.
You think they're going to be adding broadcast mixers, or is that something that's already there?
Audio mixers?
Yeah.
I kind of doubt it. I think that's my opinion, because most corporate events don't have a big nat sound component unless it's an award ceremony and you're just catching applause. It's not like sports where the crowd noise is so integral to the activity of the players and the enjoyment of everybody.
I think it's going to be a while till people are able to travel country to country and across the country. With companies trying to recover financially as well, they're going to want fewer people stay. They're going to want to put up fewer people in hotels. They're going to want to put up fewer flights and everything else. So I think there's going to be a lot more of, yes, we want to go back to live, but we're going to take all these people who have to travel and leave them at home.
Yeah, and I can attest, already set up for a show next year, Beer Fest, and I'm going to be running the stream for it. They're going to set up 5 computers, have different streams going to it, and I'm going to be in charge of all the stream operators, making sure everybody's staying connected, any technical issues or anything like that. So that's even an in-live person event, like a Beer Fest tasting, that's going to be streamed out live.
How do you taste the beer over the internet?
I don't know. I think it's part of their package. Like you sign up to get in there and they send you a box prior to the event.
There was one I saw that did that, and that's exactly what they did. They shipped everybody the alcohol, and then they had the tasting together on.
So Hermes event I recently did, they did that. They sent out all their samples to all their correspondents that were in the Zoom meeting, and in their package was a bottle of wine as well that they did a toast with when they started the event. So yeah, they're starting to do it that way. There's a country artist, Country Thunder up in Wisconsin. They actually have a stream package. They will send you all the badges and stuff, like if you actually went to the concert or the event, and and included in it, because Blake Shelton's in the one in Wisconsin, they're including a bottle of Shelton whiskey in it when you buy the stream package. So it's becoming a more common thing of live events that you order their services to get into the live event, and they send you a box of whatever to correspond with what the event's going on.
Yeah, I just actually did a a wine tasting event where that's exactly what they did. Is we did breakout rooms, and there was about 10 different wineries that had donated the wine for this event, and depending on the donation level, they sent out bottles of wine, and they got together in the breakout rooms and they all tasted it before they went to an auction. So it was like, get them a little sauced up so that the wallets start opening up and the money starts flowing. Yeah. So, but that's exactly what they did, is they sent them out. So that takes a little bit of pre-planning, because you got to account for shipping, which has been kind of late in this time. Now, in just a couple of conversations I heard, I'm also kind of doing a couple things. I didn't hear much about bringing in remote callers. Are we, Bodie, you're talking about streaming out these events, right? What about ingesting?
These are streamed out events. I just did a recent one where they did an ingest of stuff where they streamed out and ingested a few callers. But we did that one through Zoom. There's another one that we're setting up. We're supposed to be setting up, from my understanding, how the show flow is going. We're going to have.
Did that have a live audience too, though, or was it just
no live audience? No live audience. That was an in-person event. The one that I'm still waiting to hear back on, there's supposed to be a live audience with call-ins. And we're going to be doing it through, I convinced them to use OBS Ninja through vMix instead of the vMix call, because of the audio issue with vMix calls and stuff that has been happening. But we're going to be doing it that way, and we're going to have it both ways. Basically, we're going to have some come in vMix call and some come in OBS, depending on, how comfortable some people are.
I did an in-person event in September in Atlanta, and they brought in the White House Chief of Staff via Zoom and put him on the LED wall. It was about 1,200 people. And then there was a senator, congressperson there, and they were coming up a few people next to speak. And they were like, "We can do this over Zoom? I would much rather do that." And we're like, "You're right here. You're scheduled to go on in 10 minutes. No, they took a flag and stuck it in the loading dock manager's office and set up her iPad. And we did a Zoom call to her on the big LED wall, like she was in her office in DC, even though she was just about 50 feet down the hall. Wow. So just for optics. And then later she came and, glad handed everyone backstage. But
So how did that look on the LED wall, and what were you using to to ingest that Zoom call and then spit it out gear wise?
we just had a laptop and we did audio mix minus in and out of it and threw it right into an E2 and fed the LED wall. So it's
Great.
pretty typical
How was
stuff.
How was the latency?
It was fine. I mean, it was just going down the hall. Obviously it goes up to the cloud for Zoom, but she wasn't taking any questions. So it wasn't she could hear her intro, but then she just was kind of delivering her remarks. And then she, thank you for having me, attend this event.
That's what I'm curious about is when we do those, we have remote callers with live Q&A in the room. How is it going to feel as far as conversationally? Will the cadence be right, or will it, be those awkward kind of moments of pausing?
I'm looking forward to doing a live panel that it's just a moderator and 3 TVs, with 3 Zoom calls or 3, something. And
kind of like what they do on Bravo, the live show they do every night that Andy Cohen does. He's got 2 TVs on top of a chair.
Right. And just doing it like that. I think that's I have no doubt by the end of 2022, I will have done at least one show like that.
Gotcha.
Yeah, some of the Tonight shows were doing it during COVID is they had them working from home, and then they had like 2 other, and they made it look like a virtual set with a TV on each side. And that's how the people were coming in via Zoom calls or Skype calls and making it look like an on studio set.
For me, I've seen 2 kind of people who wants to join remotely. One kind is they love the virtual green rooms and the IFBs and comms. The other people are like, can I just log in into Zoom? So we have both the ways.
Yeah, we always push into getting them into individual Zoom calls so that we have control over the audio and stuff.
I do that the same way. I was going to add that I have a show coming up now where it's half live, half virtual, and I'm coming in as a streaming op, but I'm being paid to do all of it. So like I'm creating the content for the stream side, creating the lower thirds for the stream side, separate of the main event. And I'm bringing in a couple of callers. So it's kind of going both ways. And I got that show coming up in 2 weeks. So I'm seeing it both ways. I also have clients who have straight up said they're not going to go back to doing in person just because of the cost of streaming. I mean, I've had these conversations like, they do a power company here in Florida. They did, it's a co-op and they did all their people. And now they're like, we're not going to go back. It's just cheaper to do it through Zoom.
Yeah, I don't see my credit union going back to in-person meetings because it's an older investor audience, the older folks in the community, and they can just go take their video team around and record all the leadership team on their schedule. And then they just play it all out on the investor, their annual meeting day, and people can watch it from home. Yeah. The last 3 weeks I've been coming down to Florida, and there's a studio down there, and we've been doing pitches for universities for their food service. And it's been very mixed. So I've had about 6 presenters on set, and then we've been zooming in about 6 presenters, and I put them on the LED wall behind them, and some individual pips, some Brady bunches, depending on the count. And then we bring the whole group they're pitching to. Sometimes it's 4 people, sometimes it's 70 people. If it's the whole, student body a committee or something on the food service, and they're just doing a sales pitch from the studio. Normally they would fly, 6 or 8 people in, cater in food and all this. And instead they sent the last one, they sent a box with some food stuff. But they one by one go up on stage and present, and then they do a full panel Q&A back and forth. So that's pretty fun.
Yeah, I don't see it going back to full in-person events for everything. Obviously, there's certain things like what you'll see is you'll probably see, like, especially corporate, you'll probably see like quarterly Zoom, and they might do a once a year event where they come together once a year and they do a whole event. Instead, where companies were doing quarterly events with each other to talk about upcoming quarter and what their prospects are and, you know, things like that. And I'm seeing that more or less going to stick to like an event, you know, 2 or 3 people in a hotel room. You're not literally in a hotel room, but like the ballroom doing an event, streaming out to everybody else and doing that. I just don't see corporate AV coming back 100% where it's always event. I see it being more of that hybrid virtual or complete virtual. And then they'll have maybe a yearly meetup with everybody else.
Yeah, the how often they do it, I'm trying to think of the word, is definitely going to reduce. But I think there's a lot of practices, you know, insurance sales or something that's very personable sales, and they like their rah-rah meetings and their awards and recognition stuff. I think they're going to find that that's very difficult to do online. And they're going to want to get those folks together. And
yeah, I think like expos, like this show has a big expo area. It was probably, I mean, it was massive compared to the GS here. And I think that's where the real focus was, is on the expo side. But yeah, that's coming back. And then I was going to say something you said earlier about the churches, Dave, and even just Chris, you know, a show that you and me did. I think medical, what I've been seeing a lot, and Chris can attest to it, we did a show together. They're kind of doing like, hey, if you're in the state of Florida, we're doing the event here this year, show up. If you're not in the state and you're supposed to come here for whatever the training is or whatever it is, just zoom in and we'll zoom you in to show it. And then we'll zoom the presenters here. And then it's like that team went to another state and they got another team out there to do the same thing. And just, so like now it's kind of like a traveling thing a little bit more, where we're going to travel to these locations, do these little micro meetings here. People can join these if they're in the state. If they're not in the state, they can just zoom in. I see that happening. And then I got to say, to Dave's point, a lot of stuff I did during COVID was installs for the churches. But the biggest thing I noticed when live was coming back is that the churches have it on point, man. They have streaming is a whole nother production in its own in the production of the live events. Like they're doing it, in my opinion, the best because they'll have a whole nother team just for that, with including like MCs and speakers that'll, you know, work with what's going on in the production side. But it's a full blown, you know, micro. It's like a breakout room in a GS pretty much. It's happening live at the same time, and they're coordinating all these things. They look really well. I did a big one for CFAN. I was super impressed by it. But I just don't see it going away. I see it getting better, and the way we present the content better. I think people now are realizing. And again, if anybody in the community is asking questions or has different opinions about this, tell me I'm wrong. I'd love to hear it. Streaming is kind of become this very accessible thing to do. And because of all the smart guys that have been doing it, we've made it very like one-man bandish, where you send me all your feeds and I'll run the stream, you know? So it's also just like, you're just essentially, you know, bringing out some gear, depending on how many Zoom calls it is. And then you're hiring one guy to run that. And he's got that part of the show. And it's just like an added package to your new package for your shows, you know? And I mean, that's my opinion. If anybody disagrees, let me know. I'd love to hear it.
Well, I think venues are going to look to add a streaming, you know, component to the venue rental, because they're going to have less people in less food and less hotel rooms in the same amount of event space. So they're going to be looking to leverage their event space as a streaming out fee, sort of like the old, you know, bag fees. I think venues are going to pump up their internet and they're going to say, we're here ready to stream. Hilton has a whole program about it.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, Dave. I think you're going to see the price of a venue go up if they're like, oh, we're going to use your venue for a streaming event. You know, you're going to see that price tick up a little bit. It's not going to be like, oh, it was, you know, $1,000 for the room for an event. Now it's $1,600 for the room, because they know they're not going to get the money from the food or anything like that.
Yeah. And so they've got to get it somewhere. And I think the in-house AV is going to be pressured to come up with some package, be it a couple PTZ cameras and, you know, a little vMix laptop or something.
Some of the in-house has already. They've already made plans like that. Plus, like at least for us, we charged for Wi-Fi in the first place. So if a conference came in and wanted Wi-Fi, we charged. If they wanted Ethernet, we charged more. So with the streaming, they're still going to be charging for internet access, Ethernet access, but some of the companies already do have hybrid packages to go with the hotels and everything else. So yeah, they're already capitalizing on that.
I think they're going to get bit though with the internet charges as soon as 5G really rolls out.
Well, so I want to take this in a little different direction here, and you know, if the community wants to get involved in this, who is recently, right? Because I just having a talk with a good friend of mine who's thinking about moving, and one of the concerns of moving is internet. Like where I live right now, I'm just below fiber, but if I move a block away, I get fiber full speed for the same cost that I'm paying now for almost fiber. My brother here, Chris, he lives out in the boonies and he's got fiber everywhere he goes, which is to me ridiculous. But I love you, bro.
Fiber. I'm right below fiber. I'm where you're at right now. I'm right below fiber. I'm 1 gig.
So you moved what, 4 blocks away, and now you don't fiber?
Yeah, I'm 4 blocks. I didn't have fiber at the other house either. It was always 1 gig. Out here, my infrastructure is all 1 gig. They don't have fiber out here. It probably won't be 10 to 15 years before fiber gets out here because of how rural it is. We're the last thing on their mind when it comes to upgrading services or anything out here.
All right, so
we don't have fiber either. Yeah, we're out further, a little more rural, and we don't have access to fiber either.
But
So
I think
who's thinking about
5G is
that
going
now?
to turn that around. I don't think that's going to be a factor.
You don't think it'll be a factor when you're moving, like internet speeds for streaming from home?
I think it would have been if 5G was another year out. But, I just did an event from a parking lot and we did as a big Zoom call back and forth and set up some 80-inch TVs in this picnic shelter type thing. And the guy just threw down a 5G modem and we were doing 720. I mean, it was really.
Where was that?
Can you get an unlimited bandwidth with 5G though? Is that available?
Yeah. I mean,
like at full speed, unlimited?
I had a 2G or 2 gig a month plan for my family, and T-Mobile just said, we're rolling out 5G. We're bumping everyone to unlimited.
I have unlimited 5G.
Yeah.
At full speed.
Mm-hmm.
Full speed.
No cut down, no choke down, no nothing.
Wow. Okay. I didn't know that was even available. That's great.
Verizon's 5G is no choke down.
Yeah, you have to be in like the top 95% of users in T-Mobile before they throttle you. So,
and how much does that cost versus regular fiber?
$70 a month.
Yeah, I was gonna
Really?
say my phone bill for 2 phones and a tablet, or 2 phones, tablet, and my watch is $220.
It's amazing. Wow.
So if you're gonna have your phone already, add a hotspot to it. And now I would, if I was a vMix operator from home daily, I would not plan on that. But I think if you're doing it, once a month.
What kind of
Does
speeds?
all the
can you get
5G latest phones operate at full speed for you?
I don't have a 5G phone. I don't know.
I do have a 5G phone. I don't.
What's the speed?
Typically when I'm on 5G, I'm usually about 500.
Wow.
So
amazing.
you can do a lot with that.
That's obviously when I'm out in town and I'm connected to 5G. Like when I'm actually in the area that can get 5G, it's fast. Like you punch something in and it's right there.
Yeah.
But now,
Right.
how available is it though? Too the 5G it's not going to roll out everywhere.
Well, it's rolled out. It is rolled out everywhere. It's just a matter of right now. I know in Florida, in the entire state of Florida, you can get 5G in. It's just a matter of where the signal's the strongest. Like out by me, like I said, I live in rural South Florida. So 5G out by me is kind of a little, like my phone will pop in and out every once in a while. But I go 15 minutes up the road and I'm in 5G the entire time I'm in town. I drive over to Miami, my phone stays in 5G all the time. I go to Fort Lauderdale, my phone's in 5G all the time. Tampa, Orlando, Tallahassee, St. Augustine, Jacksonville, they're all 5G ready and 5G going.
Yeah, see, I'm in Polk County, which is in between Tampa and Orlando. My phone is 5G also, and I'm in the boony part, and I get the 5G also.
The other thing that's going to drive it is deployment costs. It's a lot cheaper to lay out fiber to a 5G node than it is to do fiber to the home to an entire community. So that's going to be a big factor that tilts your balance.
Correct.
Yeah, they can deploy 5G to a neighborhood for, 1,000th of the cost that they could hardwire every house. So I think they're going to make it attractive to the average user.
All right.
And one great thing about 5G is it is latency latency was taken into account when they came up with 5G because they wanted a lot of real-time services. And
I think that's the best thing. I think that's the best thing with 5G is that they did take into account latency in the RTS time of it. Like, for instance, when you're on regular cable internet, like if you're in a community and you have cable internet and the entire community is serviced through cable internet, depending on the type of day that you're on, your latency can vary. Whereas with 5G, the latency doesn't matter. You're consistently at the same latency no matter what time of day you're on, how many users are connected to it or anything. The RTS speed of the latency is non-existent. Basically, it's about 5 millisecond latency. I think the highest I've ever seen is 7 millisecond latency when I've tested it.
I just wonder if the speed will start going down though, as more and more users start using the same tower, just like they do with cellular.
Sure.
As it gets busier, they're signing up more and more people, but they don't realize that now that it's busy, everybody's speed is getting slower and slower and slower. They never guarantee any speeds. That's the worst part.
Or if a guy moves into your neighborhood with a bonding thing and 6 antennas and soaks up the whole tower himself.
I resemble that. But
we did that on an
smaller.
event for Ingersoll Rand, and we put up 20 antennas and bonded them all, and we shut down the tower. I mean, you couldn't make a phone call. No one had service on their Verizon phones. It was ugly.
So is that one of the scenarios though, where like the live views would come in handy? One of those, bonded cellular live view thing? I forget. Like that's the one I know on top of my head. There's another one though. I can't remember its name.
Yeah, the tear deck and the live view solos and things like that. Yeah, that'll come in handy with the 5G if you're in that area.
All right, so then it's like, okay, so what's cheaper, that or the hotel?
Most convention centers can be $5,000 a day. I mean, if you talk a 500 by 500, I mean that's a $10,000 internet charge from a convention center.
And that's mostly what is given out to it. And in some hotels that I've done events in, we're getting 100. That's it. So if you're able to use 5G for a quarter of the cost, and not even a tenth of the cost, like Dave was saying, you're doing 5G for a tenth of the cost, and it's 500 with the most at a 7 millisecond delay. Why wouldn't you use it?
There's also a redundancy factor. I work with a broadcast shop that we do a lot of bonded cell work with Mobile Viewpoint, and the links we use, you stuff 8 SIM cards in each, and the SOP is you do 2 each from 4 carriers, so you're distributed.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
So, Chris, I think we have a network question actually that came in. If you want to take a look.
Okay. How do we think venues will handle the need to upgrade the network connections and deliver a decent connection with quality people on site to troubleshoot? We just finished a project where we did a 16 SIM bonded cell and ended up on it because the venue network choked. And that came from Nick Hawk here in the Zoom. As far as that's concerned, the upgrade, they'll handle the network connection. If you're talking about 5G or if you're talking about the hotel connection, they'll be able to handle it. It's just a matter of what the hotel is running off of. So like I did 3 events in Miami this past month. The one hotel, we had fiber. It was 1,000 up, 1,000 down. No problems, obviously. You got 1,000 up, 1,000 down, you're not having any issues. The next show we did, we didn't have fiber. We only had the whatever was coming out of the wall, and I think I tested it. It was like they said, well, we're going out 1080p, and I went, no, we're not. And they're like, well, we're supposed to. I said, well, you better call somebody at the hotel and tell them to push some more internet this way because you're only running about 15 megs up, and that's not going to push out. And then the next one we were running 100, which that's fine. 100 will get you taken care of, and that's why it's not a huge deal if that's what you're running. But they choked you on the network. That's when you have to make the IT guy at the hotel your best friend. Like you seriously do. I mean, as much as it sucks to say, you kiss their butt and hope they give you what you need because you're at the mercy of the hotel at that point.
Yeah, it's sort of like the union in a union hall. You got to be nice to those guys.
Doesn't hurt to have some money too.
But it will. But with the 5G rolling out, if you're thinking about upgrading this with 5G, then you're not worried about your hotel. If you're in an area that can grab 5G, the hotel doesn't matter to you at that point. It doesn't matter what your hotel is throwing at you. Live G, like Live U Solo, or just a mobile network card to connect to something, at that point.
Yeah, I've gotten called several times to go to a venue to test the internet. To literally, they've flown me to some place with my laptop just to plug into because there's no one in the hotel that they trusted.
I'm doing that I'm doing that this Friday.
And when you think about the cost to fly someone somewhere, even if it's just same day in and out, you can rent a Live U Solo and get your ROI pretty quick and know that you can walk in and just throw it down and go, and not worry about not involve the hotel at all. I think another issue is a lot of hotels have outsourced their IT. And so it's not a guy on site at all. It's, a banquet or a hotel manager calling and putting a service ticket in, and then someone, remotely doing something. And hopefully they've got a good, remote into their switches and things like that. If you get someone who even understands the terminology.
It was never a priority before. We don't care if your Wi-Fi works in your room or not. It's like, you're not going to leave because of it.
Right. Exactly. You're just checking email,
That's right.
So
that also depends on if everything's running on the same system, or if someone's controlling the room internet and someone else is controlling the convention space internet. Then you get two different people working two different networks. And I mean, we've had people who said, well, my Wi-Fi doesn't work. And we're like, well, what are you on? Oh, we're on the room Wi-Fi. That's not going to work on the other end of convention space. You have to do that separately, but they want to use their room Wi-Fi. And it's like, that's not how this works. So depends on how they're going to integrate everything in the end.
This sounds like a headache for us to have to explain to people constantly.
Nothing more than we already explained to them half the time anyway when we're setting up laptops. And they're like, oh, we got to do this, this, and this. It's like, okay, can I get a hardwired connection? Well, where do you want me to get that from? There's a port in the wall there, and there. Can you call your IT guy and make sure it's running?
Yeah, it's going to be a very interesting conversation moving forward. And, with 5G, I guess we'll have to start thinking about not involving the hotel as, or involving them as little as we can. But also we're going to be bringing, we're going to be bringing a lot more networking infrastructure if we're running NDI feeds and,
wherever it's at.
Other things that are requiring, relying on network to transport audio and video. So, and none of that do we really want touching the hotel network either until we're ready to stream out. That's the only thing we really want, get into the hotel or the 5G. So I think we kind of spent a lot of time, excuse me, on this topic. And I think we got a couple other questions that have come in. So if we're all cool to move on, Chris, do we have anything else in the queue? I think you have
that one too when you run through the
Tim Mann asked, I've heard talks of remote offsite mixing. How does this work? I'll leave that to the audio professionals here, and Andrew and Ed on that one.
Yeah, I think Andrew, how does that work? I've heard about this. I've heard about this thing.
When you guys talk about streaming, I'm hoping that at some point people will start to go, we would like the sound to be a little better. The streaming sound, somebody actually listening at the other end going, this could be a lot better. And maybe the people that take care of that and actually do it will get noticed. I'm hoping, right? The productions, especially when you're talking about, let's say, a church service or something where there's a live band, and they're trying to stream this, and they're just streaming it from the mixer that they're using in the venue or something like that. When somebody's listening to it at the far end, actually at the streaming end, and making adjustments from there, you can do a lot better job. So you got kind of two steps there. You could have somebody doing the live mix remotely or in the house, and then somebody kind of monitoring after the fact, even though it's delayed, doing some tweaks and adjusting things, getting overall levels correct, getting stuff like that sorted out. So yeah, I think this certainly all the manufacturers are jumping on board, and of course I've jumped on board with Yamaha about all of this, and but everybody's talking about it. And as I said, the people wanting the better quality is probably going to help push this to start happening more.
I agree. Absolutely.
And make sure you have your subscription of Remotely Possible ready.
That's right. And your Yamaha mixer.
Yep. Yeah, I kind of went back. I'm actually been doing an in-person, touching a console in a theater. So it's, not remotely going in, but, it'd be nice. I'd love the commute a little better, but that's another story.
How do you address that when you've got to mic people and unmic them and make adjustments and troubleshoot things
or stuff
and you're not there?
Oh yeah, so that's if you're not on site, you still have to have somebody on site who is acting as an A2 to do that sort of thing for sure.
Yeah,
but
it takes white glove to the next level.
Right. Absolutely. Cool. Chris Zephos actually, I think this came in here on Zoom, if I am correct. Yep. Asked, thought of a question I should have asked last week. What is the difference between mix minus and AEC, which is acoustic echo cancellation? Do either Justin or Andrew want to talk about any of that? No?
We can flip. I mean, the simplest short answer is AEC is to some degree an automatic mix minus. It's taking the return signal and canceling it out in the room program automatically. So a little more arguably refined, but I think a good one sentence answer is local side mix minus generation.
Right, and you typically see this in conferencing, video conferencing with audio, where the far end has open speakers and is hearing, what's coming to them, and the mics are picking it up, and then it's getting acoustically canceled. Would you say that's fair? Kind of brief description.
You're trying to break the loop of the speaker back into the mic.
Mix minus on the origin side, you're eliminating it going back to the far site. On AEC, it is coming back to the far site and getting canceled out at the far end.
Right. Yeah, so a little bit different than just building a mix minus the way we were discussing last week. So, cool, great question, Chris. Thank you. Anyone have anything else to add to that, or go ahead, Dave?
Yeah, I think acoustic echo cancellation is really when you can't help the sound coming out of the speaker going into the mic because it's going through a room. Yeah, that's when you need it. Like I've got my earbuds in, so I don't need echo cancellation. As soon as I pull my earbuds out and turn on my speaker, now I need, because the microphone can suddenly hear the whole mix coming back and being fed into the mic. Acoustically, you need to dial that out. And, Zoom has a great algorithm for that. They do a really good job. Where a mix minus, you're never sending any of what's coming in from that source back to it. And you may do that for a different reason other than feedback. It may be because it's slightly delayed. And when you're hearing something a little bit at a time, you start to talk slower to try to catch up with your own ears. So they're used for different things.
That was a great ad. Thank you, Dave. Cool. I think we can move on. And if you have more questions, please get them in. If you're on Facebook or YouTube, get them into the comments. If you're here in Zoom, throw them into the Q&A function feature right at the bottom of your screen, and we'll get to it. James Walmsley had asked, I guess when I asked for topics earlier, for work-life balance, theatrical audio routing, how important is pre-show prep? So those are three kind of different topics that James is interested in us talking about. Yeah, work-life balance. I don't know what that is. Does anybody?
I was gonna say, anybody know what that is? Because I don't think that's
Yeah.
a thing when you
I don't
work
know what that is
audiovisual.
either, so
Yeah.
We're a feast or famine industry. You either have all the time for life or no time for life.
Yep.
So
Yeah, I think we're driven by when the events are, and we don't have much control over that other than to say no, and then we don't get paid. And sometimes, I've got certain clients, you say no to one job offer, and you're not going to get called for that job ever again because they're going to fill it with someone else, and they're going to like that person, and so they want the same people every year. So saying no is very difficult in our business at some level of operator, talent. And so you tend to say yes more than you always want to. And that does put a strain on that work-life balance. For me, I for years, I knew that the 4th of July week was always a week that nothing was going on. So I would try to plan my vacations on the 4th of July. It's still a big strain between me and my wife to plan a vacation more than about 3 weeks out, because, that's kind of the window when the last minute jobs come in. I had clients bringing audio to the hospital when my wife was in labor with our 3rd child for me to do edits in the labor room. So it's just one of those things in our industry. We are firemen a lot of times, and when the bell rings, you go, or they don't call you when the next fire happens. So
I think some of the firefighters have more time off.
Yeah, that's for sure. I'm finding myself as like right now in this virtual space, I do a lot of records where I'm just recording remote presenters. And the most frustrating thing is when you're all set to go and then they cancel and it has to get rescheduled. It's not like, oh, well, it's just not happening. Not when you're at a live event and a presenter doesn't make it because they missed their flight, that presenter doesn't present. But these pre-records have to happen. So you get very little notice and they're like, okay, well, we got to reschedule it. And they give you some very, specific, this is when they're available times. And hopefully it fits in between the other stuff you have booked. And you can't get that time back. I have had a hard time getting people to actually want to pay for that time, even though, I would have cancellation fees in the live when we were in person. It's tougher when we're talking about pre-records and I'm working from home and doing these things that, I'm already charging, for what could only be an hour maybe of work, and I'm getting a day rate or a half day rate, depending what the job is. But it's just one of those things that's, throws a wrench in my schedule a lot. And now wherever I have to fill these little things in, it's like, oh, well, now I have to push off what I was going to do during that time to fit it in. And like Dave said, you don't want to say no because they'll get somebody else to do it. And then there goes your work. It dries up real quick. So
once they find the other person and they like them more, they find out how good it could have been. They're mad at you after that.
Exactly. Yeah. Then they're asking, hey, we want money back for all those other recordings.
Oh, man, you were no good. I had no idea.
So what I'm hearing is we need to factor in hybrid and virtual cancellation fees, just as if we would do live events then. Because how many times are you going to set up and take time out of your day that you were set up for something else and they cancel on you constantly, and then they put you in a bind and they're like, hey, we need this done now. And it's like, dude, we had this set up 4 times last week and they canceled every time. I didn't charge you for that. Right. Now that comes into another part where you guys had live event packages that you would charge cancellation fees for. Now you have to factor that into your home virtual.
Yep.
Package.
Yeah, it gets tough. It's a we're all navigating new waters, so it's
that balance. Exactly. It's that balance. It's like, okay, well, how much do I charge for a cancellation fee from home? If I charge, live event cancellation fee, it was 10% of whatever it was, or whatever your cancellation fee was. I'm just saying, whatever your cancellation fee was. And then it's like, okay, you're working from home, you're charging this much money. How much are they going to go pack sand and walk away?
Right. No, exactly. So
and how do you justify it? I mean, before when I was in sales, I would always say, we've packed the truck already. We've already prepped all the gear and packed the truck. But when you're walking into your other bedroom in your pajamas and you flip a power strip on, they go, how much was that cancellation? Now
what I'm
you've
saying, is
blocked
finding
part of your time away from your family, or maybe your whole family went to Disney World, but you stayed here so that you could do this record. But they don't know that. They don't know what you've lost from a family perspective.
I think that goes into what he was saying about how much show prep. You do charge a cancellation fee, and you can because you spent this time prepping. You prepped the gear, you prepared for them, blah, 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 blah. So there has to be something in there for the time you already spent. And that's pre-production and prep. And that still should get charged something.
I mean, right, so our pre-production's a little different. We rolled out of bed, we rubbed our eyes, and we made a cup of coffee before we started.
No.
Well, you get on site, you'd have a cup of coffee before you start doing anything.
I understand it's not that simple, but you get what I mean.
Now I have to do the pre-production twice.
That's what I'm saying. Is you've set all this stuff up, you've gotten it all ready to go. You're waiting for that to come in. You've had it set up for a couple of days, so they literally just come in, they do their pre-record, and they're done. And now that's all out the window. That's what I'm saying. Is obviously you can't sit here and say, okay, it's this much money for the cancellation, but like you guys are saying, how do you charge a client for, oh, well, you're working from home, what can the cancellation really be? They don't look at it the same way, like you said, where it's like, oh, well, the truck's already loaded. Right. You literally use the same argument when it's a home production. It's like, okay, well, I've already prepared the audio, ready for the audio. It's kind of, but I get what you're saying. It's a little harder to charge a cancellation fee for something from home versus, dude, all the gear's in the truck. Are you kidding me?
Right. And Craig here in Zoom and Greg Gibson on Facebook both had pretty much the similar comments that the cancellation fee is for the work that you could have taken during that time, and that's really what it comes down to. It's when I have a cancellation, again, a lot of times especially on these pre-record jobs I'm doing, we'll book an hour or 2 hours, but I get on beforehand. I set up all my machines, I set up all my records. Then once the recording is done, I have to upload some of them I have to wait for them to convert. I have to upload them, and during the records I'm taking notes, so I'm still doing work even after the whole session is done. And if I'm booked for an hour of pre-records, I actually block out 2 hours, because there's always going to be that that one person who, it's the CEO of the company is just not getting it, or we have to do take after take. And in my pre-prep too, a lot of that is teleprompter. I'm actually prepping the whatever remarks they're sending me in some awful format that doesn't go into the prompter software very easily, and then I have to still reformat. And then, of course, on site, as soon as they get in, oh, no, those were my old remarks. I cut out this whole paragraph, or can you shift this? And, so I always block out a bigger chunk of time than what I need, because these things are going to happen. And it's the prep that James had asked about too. The prep is super important. It takes longer. All of these events, I mean, with pre-records, people love pre-records because, when you get into the show, now you're hitting play. You're just kind of taking cues and whatnot. But it's a lot longer of a process. It's so much more involved. When you look at it by labor hours, as opposed to if those presenters came on, we prepped them before the show as far as making sure their internet was good and all the stuff we do on a pre-record to make sure that we're getting a good signal, their notifications are off, all that stuff. And they just delivered it live. Everyone's just afraid of not looking perfect in these things. And if you were reading a teleprompter in an in-person event and you stumbled over your words, well, you're not going to back up and do it again. So I think a lot of these events where we're doing pre-records, I mean, I'll take it because it's, it's cha-ching, but at the same time, like, it's eating up so much more time. And that's, it takes away from some of the live aspect of it too, in my opinion. But it's an interesting thing. But this cancellation thing, it's rough. And the work-life balance on all of us who are producing these things, because it just does take so much more labor time for us. It's really rough right now. And then I've had a couple in-person jobs now, some with audience, some without. And, now trying to fit in some of this virtual stuff, and I have to go on site somewhere. I have to remember, how long does it take me to get places? I live near Manhattan, and if I have to go into the city, it's like, well, there's a lot less traffic. I used to leave myself this much time. Do I have to leave myself that much time? And oh yeah, I have to park a car, and does my car have gas in it? Because I haven't driven it in 6 days, and all these things are new challenges. So I'm terrible with the work-life balance. It's mostly work and not as much life, and way out of balance. So hopefully somebody else has it figured out.
I think the pre-production process, while it's different, it's just as important and just as long. And you're just concentrating on something else. You're still doing show flow. You're still doing a script. You're still doing all the elements that are going to go into a show, whether you're on site or at home. Either way, you're spending that time, and either way, you should get paid for doing your pre-production. Just because you did it in your pajamas in the living room, you're still putting in that time and effort.
Yeah, I like to use the analogy, of the red box. You rent the movie, but you don't have to watch it, but you're still going to pay the rental. And, you're renting time on my machine, you're renting my electricity, you're renting me, and you don't have to show up for the interview. But, their mentality is, well, we're paying for this end product. Well, no, you're not. You're paying for the service of having me available to generate the end product. If your person doesn't show up at that window that was scheduled, you're paying for this service. You're not paying for the end product. And so I think that goes into those conversations in advance. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Tom Stimson. He's an AV industry guru as far as business goes. And he did through the COVID thing, he did weekly webinars and stuff. And he really pushed the new model of billing for production companies to be very labor heavy. He said, give away the gear, because everyone's got gear that's sitting idle. Give away the gear, charge a lot for pre-production, and get it paid for in advance, because gigs are going to cancel. People are going to get sick at the last minute. The audience is going to decide, they're not going to show up, or a state's going to shut down. And you need to be paid in full for your pre-production, paid for your prep in a second installment. And if the gig happens to go, then you get that final little add-on, gravy money at the end. So that was his model that he's been pushing for months.
Great.
And the biggest thing that I'm seeing, like a lot of people commenting on as well, and it's 100% true, the value that you're delivering, it doesn't matter that you're doing it from home. It doesn't matter that you did it in your pajamas. You're still producing the same value, whether it's in person or from your house. So, and I think Ray Franklin said half day is minimum. I have to agree with that. I mean, yes, you might, like Dave was saying, you've paid for the end product, but now my end product is now gone an extra day of what it was supposed to be. So that needs to be covered versus, you canceled on me 4 times. It's like, that's not my problem. Now your required date now is later than you wanted it because your guy canceled, or you're going to want me to rush and put this together because your guy canceled 4 times.
And that's a clause that needs to go in writing, that if this is canceled for what XYZ, blah, 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 blah. But it goes back to that. You're paying for the expertise. You're paying for the person, for the service. You're paying for more than just, otherwise you can just call a company and have them drop off some gear.
Yep. Cool. So
wish we would have had this conversation like 4 weeks ago.
It's tougher to put into practice.
I'll give you an example of a show, and I'm sure Ed and Chris can relate to this. I had a client who it was a last minute call to come in and help with the presenter. It was like a hit or miss thing. Didn't get paid for, by the way, but did a bunch of pre-work the day before. That a very particular way that they ran their VMix machines and how they did things. So I spent a couple hours like setting up to how they wanted me to set it up for the stream, for this potential guy to come, to find out in the morning he didn't come in, and they didn't want to pay me because they know what I do, and they're like, "Isn't that your setup all the time in your room?" And I was like, "Yeah, but I spent 3 hours redoing my VMix to run the way you want it to run, to stream out to this." So whatever. I didn't make a big deal about it. I moved on with my life, but that was an area where I didn't get paid because it was like, well, we didn't do the show. I was like, yeah, but I was up in the morning. I was ready to go. I got everything ready. The show was built. I did everything I had to get done. I went in and like got into Discord, got in the group, got into my room, sat there and waited for a good 30 minutes to get told, oh, he's not coming anymore. We don't need you. And I was like,
and that's not your problem. And that's what I'm saying is with this is a new wave of things that are a new wave of complications or a new wave of things that are going to come from home virtual events, is figuring out how, like we've said before, you love the shows that you get on and the truck shows up and you've unloaded the truck and they go, oh, we're canceling the show. Guess what? You're still getting paid because you showed up. Now it's, well, you didn't, you all you did was roll out of bed and get on a computer. Yeah, but I set up for 4 days prior to that to make sure your show went off without a hitch. It's still the same concept. I unloaded the truck. I started the venue. Your guys didn't show up. I'm still getting paid for it. And this is a new challenge that it's going to face when you're working from home, is how to communicate that to somebody to where it makes sense and they understand it's no different than a live in-person event.
And it's hard to put in practice because none of us, AV is a very passion oriented business, and you hate to ask for money for something you love to do, but especially to ask for that deposit. And a lot of times on short notice things, they're like, well, our company takes 10 days to process a check, blah, blah, blah. And so you get that runaround. But man, when you get a deposit and then something cancels and you get to keep that deposit, it's such a good feeling. All the stress of asking for it, and discomfort, you're thanking yourself.
100%.
I had to have it one time. I was so happy about it.
What was that?
It's a big 7-day show that canceled like 24 hours before, and the end client still got us all paid for the 7 days. It's awesome.
Yeah, I flew to Key Biscayne once. We unloaded 2 tractor trailers, came in for loading the next morning, and they said, yeah, pull the trucks back around. Show canceled. Hurricane's coming in. And we pushed it all back on the truck and took an airboat ride and saw some alligators and then flew home.
Me and Omar almost had that last year on a show together. We literally drove the day before a hurricane hit, and we're like, trucks loaded. We're all set up. If the hurricane hits and everything goes down, it is what it is. We can't do anything if there's no internet, there's no power, there's nothing running the hotel to get everything going. So it was the same thing.
We had a group that actually asked the hotel if they could load in a day early because the hurricane was supposed to come, so that they could have their stuff set up and they're not like leaving it on the truck. And then the client, they could tell the client, well, we set up. And they set up the whole room a day early to beat the hurricane.
The funny thing for that show I was telling you about was the weather ended up being beautiful in Key Biscayne the whole week, but the hurricane turned and went up to where about 10% of the attendees were going to live, and they didn't want to leave their homes, unsupervised and come down for this meeting. So that's why they canceled it.
That's what we call the calm before the storm. It is absolutely the most gorgeous view in the world before a hurricane hits.
I've got a question I'd love to throw out to some of the expertise here. RTMP. I got an email from an agency this week saying the local school district is interested in streaming all 27 high school graduations. So if I'm, streaming, I don't know, 1,200 potential streams for every graduation. I don't know. What's a service that I can just hire that you guys would recommend that I can point an RTMP stream at and have a portal and people just log in and see their kid, besides YouTube, obviously? Because
you can embed a player in a web page. Yep. And then use something like Restream.io to send out to multiple locations or whatever. So essentially you send one stream key and it'll do the distribution. I think like Restream.io does it. StreamYard has a limited amount. Diecast is another one.
Yeah, I was looking at Diecast.
Yeah.
So that's what you guys would recommend? Because does Restream actually, if I had 27 events and could have 1,200 people at a lot of them, simultaneous viewers?
Oh, yeah. The viewership of the RTMP is not a matter of how many people are coming in. The RTMP is where it's going to.
Right. So, I know that's going to the distribution network. I didn't know Restream. I knew they went to like Facebook and YouTube and all the services, but I didn't know they did to the end user.
You can upload the Restream.io does give you the ability to embed it into a web browser and Vimeo, whatever it is. I never can pronounce it right. But it gives you the ability to do that where you can put it behind a paywall as well to be able to unlock it.
Right. I doubt I would need to do a paywall for kids graduation.
Yeah, but I'm just saying for other events that if you ever come across that where they want you to embed it into a web page and put it behind, only our subscribers can get it if they pay $4.99 type deal,
Right.
But yeah, they do have that where you can embed it in a website. There's multiple services too. I mean, you can use Twitch technically to do that. You can use a bunch of different platforms to do it that way.
But then, Chris, I think I'm hearing you say though is Restream is just giving you something that you're still putting onto a different CDN, right?
Yeah, because you need what he needs that server. So Restream's creating the server, the embedment server for them to come and view. So Restream handles it doesn't matter. Restream's RTMP server is no different than Twitch's RTMP server, Facebook's RTMP server, YouTube's RTMP server. The server itself can handle millions of ingest data that's coming through it, millions of viewers, hundreds of thousands, millions of viewers coming to look at it. So if you embed it into a link, it's giving you that RTMP for that situation, and it will hold that ingestment.
Yeah, because I want a service that will take any content. There's no risk of, them playing some music that might be copyrighted that shuts down the stream, like YouTube or Facebook or anything like that. Yeah,
you're going to run into that regardless. You can't control the platforms.
That's why I want a platform I've paid a fee for, and they're going to stream whatever I put up there.
Yeah, the web page would be the route.
The web page is the only way to do it. If you go to Twitch won't shut you down. Twitch will strike you afterwards, or they'll mute the VOD afterwards. YouTube, they'll slap you with a copyright strike, mute the video. Video won't be able to be heard. Facebook, I mean, we just recently had one happen to us, and because I'm an admin on the AV Educate page, my personal Toxic Biowolf page got demonetized. I'm no longer a Facebook partner anymore because of a copyright strike that happened on the AV Educate page.
2 years ago, too.
2 years ago. Video from 2 years ago, mind you. So it is what it is. But when you're on somebody else's platform, you have no right or fight for that copyright. When I stream, one of the biggest things of why I stopped streaming straight to YouTube was because of the copyright clause and getting copyrighted constantly. I was playing DMCA free music, had written notarized papers from the artists themselves that made the beat, literally made the beat, signed and said, I have permission to use this on my stream, and would send it to YouTube, and they would still copyright strike me every single time. And they don't validate the person copyright striking you. So therefore, what you're getting random people taking that copyright, and they're just throwing literal, shit at a wall, excuse my language, and hoping something sticks. And there you go. And that's what happens on YouTube is you just have a bunch of people going around that services pay to go through and just copyright strike stuff and see which one sticks. And that's what's happening on YouTube right now. That's why I think YouTube myself, for any content creation that uses any type of music or sounds or anything like that, they're copyright striking in-game music on YouTube. And you have that permission through the game purchase to be able to play that music.
Yeah. So you guys would
Vimeo is free of copyright if you want to use it, or and it has the domain privacy feature. I don't think Twitch has it. Chris, can you confirm on it?
Twitch does have DMCA. They will mute your VODs and.
No, I mean the domain privacy feature.
Yeah, they do.
Okay.
Yeah, they have domain privacy. You can't.
Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, they're
all of them have
super hard.
Yeah, but the thing, that's the reason why everybody's kind of sticking with Twitch when it comes to streaming too, is because of that fact right there that they don't cancel you out, they don't shut you down, they just mute your video. If they sense any type of music in your video that's not from a video game, they mute the VOD immediately.
So Dave, just so you know, on Facebook, Henry Ramos said Vimeo can give you an RTMP link, then give you an embed code to paste into any website. Also has chat. Yeah, or you can just share the Vimeo link and they can watch it on
the
Vimeo.
enterprise version, and you can only do one stream at a time, and there's 3 locations. So I'd have to have 3, whatever their top tier is, platinum or whatever, 3 of those for this.
Yeah, so I would look in the diecast because I want to say they'll give you what you need, but
yeah, they seem to be. I just didn't know if anyone had inside it.
If you're doing multiple like that,
recommendations.
where you're doing 3 different events at the same time, diecast would probably be the best, where you'd have one output for everything.
Yeah.
And be more cost effective. Yeah. Cool. I think Justin, did you have something you wanted to talk about earlier?
I did. I may be a little late to the party at this point, but going back to the discussion about ingesting callers, Zoom is the undisputed king of the hill, but people's thoughts and preferences, Zoom versus vMix Call versus OBS Ninja, Skype, Teams. I think obviously Zoom is the thing most callers are most comfortable and familiar with, but didn't know what people's thoughts or preferences were with the others.
I've used 3 multiple platforms at the same event: Skype, Zoom, and vMix calls. So I go with the preference of the speaker all the time, because when they're comfortable, the stream is done well, right? So
I get asked for Teams a lot. Most of the stuff I'm doing is with hardware. So it's a laptop per person, and it's going into a real, hard, heavy iron switcher. So when I tell someone who asks me for Teams, okay, I'm going to need 6 logins for your organization for these 6 computers, that's when they go, oh, can you do it with Zoom without all that? Yeah, I've got 6 accounts on Zoom. And they're like, well, yeah, our presenters would prefer Zoom anyway. Well, there we go. And then it's just a mute point. So Zoom for that reason, because it's hard to set up. I mean, you deal with Microsoft on getting 6 Teams accounts.
I don't like Teams either. I feel bad.
I don't really like Teams either.
But there's
and
some people
Skype is being used less.
who still think Zoom is kind of out of their privacy world. So they try to do other things like Skype or Teams. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm always open. I'm like, we'll install anything you want on this computer as long as you can give me a login per person. And I've, it's always resulted in Zoom being the end product.
I haven't seen too many using Skype, but that's just my experience. It's either Teams or Zoom.
We use Skype in India because we get a good quality. I think we have a dedicated servers in India, so we get a good quality out of it.
And Skype does NDI out, right? Does it do audio and video NDI out?
Yes, it's like same like Teams, but it's more manageable because you don't see the big Microsoft logo. Instead, you see the Skype small logo, so you kind of crop it easily.
But isn't there's a curve on it, like not a learning curve, but there's like the other person on the other end has to do a little bit of technical stuff on their end. It's not just plug and play like Zoom is, where the person just comes in and we as the technician or whatever operator at that time, we're doing all the stuff in the background. They have to set them on their end. I remember I hadn't done it yet.
No, not for Skype. Skype is just like Zoom. You just give them the call-in link and they call in, and you just grab it the same way you do with Zoom.
Don't they have to set up an account? They have to be a Skype user, don't they?
I believe that's the only thing with Skype, is that you have to have an account with Skype. It's not like Zoom where you can just log into a meeting without an account. So that is the only other side for Skype.
I've heard very good things about Skype's ability to transverse, firewalls and things like that. And the quality is usually pretty good on Skype.
I mean, if you have somewhat of, and it's not even a slight, if you have somewhat technical users with the new vMix updates and things like that, OBS Ninja responds way better, in my opinion, than vMix calling does. vMix calling is a little bit easier because you just send them a number and tell them, go to this website, and they log in, and not even log in, just put the number in and put their name in. But with OBS Ninja, the quality is a lot better of sound and audio and video that comes through it. Sorry, I said the same thing, but audio and video coming through OBS Ninja right now is, in my opinion, better than vMix calls.
How do you bring in OBS Ninja? Is that NDI as well? Is that you
it comes in through NDI, but with the new feature in vMix, it's just it's a web source. You open a web source, you add a web source in the vMix, and it'll bring it right in. You don't even have to even look at it on another screen.
So Amar on Facebook had asked a couple questions, and one of them about how about OBS Ninja. So that is another alternative that vMix users have been using, and it's free. So that's, I mean,
yes,
it's, that's a huge perk. Another one that's popular is live to air, which is not free. I can tell you that. But I know people who are very happy with live to air, and those, they use that instead of vMix call. So there are a handful of other options available. I
if
know,
you're considering OBS Ninja, AV Tech Talks did a whole hour on it, and the syntax and control you have over it when you set up the link is phenomenal.
Yeah, and whoever's running it, if they know any code source, they can literally adjust the code and change it on the fly immediately. So like if a user's pushing 1080p and they're not able to sustain that 1080p, they don't have to tell the client end to do anything. They can go right into the code source and automatically scale it down to 720, or drop the frames to 30, or shut the audio off, or turn the audio on, or they can do it all from the production end versus getting client side to do it.
And we just got a question from Henry Ramos on Facebook asking, is OBS Ninja only peer-to-peer, or do they have turn servers like vMix Call does?
They have turn servers. You can create an OBS Ninja room and have a bunch of people join in and pick them up and drop them as you want.
Yep.
There's also something, a service I'll just throw out there, ShowFlow Studio, that's built on Jitsi. That is a fully cloud-based, like StreamYard. If you want to do your whole production in the cloud.
Have you guys sent return audio feeds from vMix to Discord for IFB or something?
Sending what audio from Discord to vMix?
If your 8 of your vMix calls are filled up with speakers, and you might want to route the audio out through NDI to Discord for additional comms or something. Maybe you're getting speaker support from Discord or something. Because I haven't doing it.
I haven't done it, but I know it is possible to do that through Discord. I've done my stream audio out to Discord just to mess with people in my team before, in my stream and stuff like that. I had like 12 people sitting in a Discord room, and I'm like, oh, this will be funny. I opened it up and blasted a loud noise from my stream right into the Discord, and they all like freaked out about it. But yeah, it is possible to do it that way.
The way I'm doing it is I'm creating channels in Discord for speakers, MC and ASL, and then DJs. So there's 4 levels of persons who are connecting for that particular event. So I'm kind of routing all those audio feeds to the main Discord server. So I want the Discord to handle the comms. So yeah.
You will have to have separate accounts though,
yes,
that are open.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say for each comm room, because you can't be in all of them at once.
Yeah, got it.
So that's pretty cool though. That's interesting that you're doing it that way. So we do have a couple more questions that came from Facebook from Amar. So what do you stream to now if you don't stream to YouTube or Twitch anymore? And what if you're producing your own music and streaming that to YouTube or Twitch? Does it get shut down? Twitch will not shut you down. If you're streaming your own music, Twitch will not shut you down. YouTube won't shut you down either. It's just a matter of whether your video gets a copyright strike. So if a copyright claim comes to your YouTube, then you have to fight it. If you get a DMCA from Twitch, then you have to fight it. Very rarely are DMCAs coming through Twitch. They're just muting the VODs. A lot of the bigger streamers got DMCA'd, and I think it was more of a make an example type thing out of the bigger streamers, like Tim the Tapman, Ninja, Shroud. A lot of the bigger streamers over there on Twitch that play music behind their stream sometimes, they were getting DMCA'd strike. And I think, like I said, it was more of an example made out of people than it was actually an attack on Twitch itself. YouTube is notorious for it. YouTube is absolutely, I spent more time fighting copyright claims on my YouTube than I did uploading videos to my YouTube before, when I was streaming to YouTube solely. As far as like platforms like that to stream to, there are a ton of platforms that you can go to. You have Facebook is one of them, but Facebook will shut your stream down if it's copyright strike or copyright claimed. You have Patron It's a paid for service where you can actually live stream to the paid for service. And it's for content creators and artists and things like that. I actually know a buddy of mine that does game streaming to Patron for his subs and his Twitch stream. So if you're a sub, you automatically get access to his Patron channel, and he does off Twitch custom streams to Patron for his subs. And he does, NFSW type stuff where it's a little bit more vulgar and things like that than he does on Twitch and things. So there are other places that you can go for that. As far as doing your own music, as long as your music, it's your own music and you can prove it's your own music, they're not going to shut you down. And especially if you're in the video making the music. And then I do see one more. It says, also, are you guys using Zoom for this stream, and how are you having it voice switch? Thanks. We are using Zoom for this stream, and Ed is the brains behind all the audio.
Sorry, before we get there, Jesse was asking, are you talking about Patron or Patreon? Which I think you mean Patreon. What you were mentioning.
Yeah, it's Patreon. I knew I was saying it wrong the whole freaking time. I'm in my head going, that doesn't sound right, but yeah, Patreon.
Oh, good.
You drink Patron.
Right.
I don't drink Patron. We won't talk about that.
I've heard people do. I do not. Yes. So we're using Zoom for this. This is a Zoom webinar that's a 1080p webinar. So our attendees also see in 1080p. Again, and that's might as well. That's thanks to DVE Store, dvestore.com for all your audio and video equipment needs. They'll take care of you. So yeah, we have a 1080p webinar account, which I'll tell you, once we switched to the 1080p webinar, it made things a lot easier for our presenters, because we'd have presenters who wanted to bring things in with vMix or with other vision mixers as far as showing their desktops and things like that. And when it was a 360p webinar, it was very hard to see some of that, text on screen kind of things. Even before we had 1080p, we were capturing for the Facebook and the Facebook live stream. And at that point, we weren't streaming live to YouTube. We were just uploading to YouTube. And those were at 720 because we would bump the panelist view of the webinar to 720 and capture that. And that would be how we streamed out. So the audio is getting captured right now and video is getting captured NDI, sent to my vMix machine as 2 streams. So I have a gallery up and I have a speaker on the second screen that switches active speaker, and I can switch between that and I can go to gallery, and then everybody sees gallery, and then I've got my nice little ticker that reminds you to ask us questions. So but the audio is just coming in as an NDI stream along with the video, and that's how we're capturing it right now. Justin and I were just sitting up the other night working on his streaming setup at his facility and looking at other ways to do audio, because he's doing some stuff where he's capturing and cropping multiple Zoom feeds. And, if you've ever doubled up an input to doubled up a video feed of NDI and brought it in, and then you get the doubling of the audio and you have to bring the audio down. We talked about a workaround, and I think next week, Omar, we're going to be talking a little bit about vMix audio and NDI. That's what we were going to talk about today, but like I said, something had come up. So next week we'll kind of get into that more, but there's things you can do in vMix, like, take a bus and make it an input. So you don't have to, go crazy with worrying about your levels. You can get it all so that you end up having an overall level for your bus and then attach that to your video stream. So we're gonna talk about some of that. I'm sure Dave's got some cool routing, so I hope he comes back next week. But yeah, we'll get into more of that. But this right now is real simple, just taking NDI audio with the video from a capture machine right into vMix, and then
we're not mixing this audio. We're letting Zoom do the mix of our audio. I think the quality is that we've got some all of us take it seriously, and we've got decent audio and good rooms and garbage in, garbage out. It's good stuff going in and good stuff coming out.
Right. Yeah, we're not super crazy. Like, we don't have any meters that we bring in, but we make sure we hear everybody beforehand. The meters definitely do help. But as long as I kind of try to listen to everybody beforehand. The only thing is, with the mix minus here in Zoom, I can't hear myself, so I don't know how I am relative to everybody else. but I always try to pop the the Facebook stream into my ears, and that's when I start to slur when I'm listening to myself delayed and back. But yeah, that's how we're doing audio. It's nothing too sophisticated at this point. Once my whole B-Link thing is set up, I have those little B-Link computers. That will start getting a little more sophisticated because I will be capturing from 2 different machines. And then I have to be conscious of which one I'm taking audio from, because then the lip sync might be off if I'm taking audio from one but video from the other. Because they are still in a Zoom meeting at that point. So, cool. Love to move on here. Let me see where we're at. Will Austin is asking, as we transition into hybrids and bring remote guests into live ballroom, how well will we adapt to using NDI in a hotel environment where IT is shutting down use because of system security? We didn't talk about security earlier. Are we back to hardwiring our Zoom to vMix machines? Your thoughts? So yes. We kind of talked about internet use, and I mean, I mentioned that we're still going to be bringing in our own switches and keep everything as much as we can off of the hotel's networks. So how would we, I guess, yeah, what are we thinking about for segmenting our network traffic? Because obviously we're going to bring remote callers in from the internet, so that's going to have to be on the hotel network unless we do a 5G like we talked about earlier. Or maybe that's what we do. Maybe we ingest on a 5G, or we ingest it from the hotels and then dump it onto our networks and then spit it out on another. I don't know. What are some thoughts?
I've done it both ways. I've done it where we were on the Wi-Fi for the venue, and I've done it the other way where we had brought in a switch and just took one line from the venue, everything else in the switch. And I've done it the other way where we had 3 rooms going on, all being routed to the venue with no problems. So I've done it both ways, and I've seen good results.
I just want to bring back a structure thing because the question specifically mentioned NDI. I think as general practice, I think everybody's going to agree when you're doing production on a show, you don't want to be putting traffic on the house network other than your one connection point to the internet. NDI should never be touching the house network. NDI should all be within your equipment and your switches, so it shouldn't be an issue. Any callers aren't going to be coming NDI. They're going to be coming in one of the other gateways we just talked about. So I think really the answer to that question for me is simply it reinforces the importance of keeping production separate and then single point gateway to the house.
And basically the best way to do it is, and again, you don't have to have internet to run NDI between computers. I don't know if anybody realizes that. You don't. You can have just a network hub and address them IP addresses and send signal between each computer. So you don't necessarily need network in order to traffic NDI to another computer. Just to make that perfectly clear. I don't know if anybody knew that or not, but you don't. So you don't even have to touch the hotel's internet to do it.
I was wondering, we are so used to software switches like vMix from doing shows from home. So how are we going to adapt when things get back to normal, and how are we going to adapt to them going back to the hardware switches? Because the software ones will do with latency on the iMac. So yeah,
that's a great point. I always bring up a lot of people started using vMix during the pandemic. A lot of people who had never done video production, and I anticipate there's going to be a lot of those startups who kind of go out and say, oh, sure, I can do these live events. We'll bring in remote callers. I have some capture cards, and we'll take the live cameras in, and we'll send it to a video wall, an LED wall. And, the latency is going to be a real concern that I think many people are not ready for and aren't anticipating and planning for. When you take in a live camera, process it through vMix, then spit it out at HD resolution. You're not going to be doing 720/30 anymore on an encode. You're going to be doing 1080p 60 or 5994. and then sending that to, well, if you're doing LED processors, you're probably doing 60, and then send that to an LED processor that also has latency, and maybe there's a switch in between that too. That's, you're gonna have the spaghetti western look, you know, with the out of sync audio, and that's going to be a serious thing. I think when we go back, and personally, I hope what we see is going back, you know, hardware switchers for all the in-room, and then, you know, if there's going to be vMix on site, that's handling just the stream. I've heard people talk about how they want to do the titling and lower thirds and things like that with vMix, and, you know, for the on-screen, which I guess that's fine if you're just sending like alpha layer stuff, but still, you know, we've been doing lower thirds forever on hardware switchers, so, you know, why not? And then let the stream be its own thing, have its own operator, and call it a day. So that's kind of my take on how it should go. I don't know. Of course, hardware switchers cost money, and guys, people that operate them cost money. So we'll have to see what these clients want to pay for, because now they are used to essentially video production in a box, you know, one-man band kind of things like we talked about earlier. And, you know, managing those expectations and those budgets is going to be the hard part, I think, moving forward for all of us. But
yeah, I stayed in the hardware switcher realm. I've never even put my hands on a vMix machine, and stayed quite busy through the pandemic, because what I adapted to was, yeah, I had a lot of equipment partners who could throw a lot of laptops at me, and set up real hardware switchers with lots of laptops as my sources. And so I could do virtual through, you know, a hardware switcher. And that kept my skill set up for operating hardware switchers and all that. And I think that's moving into this hybrid, you know, it's positioned me pretty well. That's just, you know, my situation. I was in South Carolina, and a lot of work in Florida where there were a lot less restrictions. And I was doing a lot of in-person events still throughout the whole pandemic. So for those of us that have been able to keep that, I think there's a lot of hardware switchers that people are looking to monetize, you know, so you're going to show up on job sites and people are going to be giving away hardware switchers to put them up there and do the initial live switch, because the first time they try to switch a live show and have that lip sync, they're going to have egg all over their face, and they're going to say, what do we need to do to fix this?
Yeah, I agree. And like I said, I think there will be, because there's so many new people to the market who have just been vMix operators. I mean, there's this Greg Gibson guy. I don't know if you've heard of him, but, you know, he talks about how he was a photographer. And I mean, Greg would never do this because his mothership is too big to take apart and bring on site. But, you know, and I'm picking on him just because I know him, but that's the kind of, you know, people who got into this and maybe didn't do video production previously with hardware switchers. That might be something that they think, oh yeah, I can tackle that, because what I'm doing at home is like, you know, this crazy production, and you know, latency isn't even a thought right now. In the same way, when you have actual people in a seat who can see what's on a screen, you know, your monitor isn't delayed because you don't actually have a person talking that you can see and hear. So it's going to be interesting for sure, Dave. I think you hit the nail on the head.
Well, and I think the other analogy is live sound mixers versus recording mixers. When you introduce gain before feedback, you know, you can turn up a studio mic all you want into the mix. You can't turn up every mic live on the stage into the speaker system, and it separates the men's from the boys in that type of environment.
That's a great point. Great point. Absolutely. I had something else I was going to say, and I totally lost my train of thought. So
sorry.
No, that's all right. It's not your fault. It's this.
Train of thought derailed.
Yeah. No. Absolutely. We got another question that came in. Unless anybody has anything else to add.
Greg says that he's already on that.
Oh, okay. Well, Greg's practically moved to the cloud. That's going to be interesting too. Is cloud, you know, trying to produce things in the cloud. That would be interesting. There are some products for fast transfer up and down. Like AWS has, I can't remember the name of it. That yellow box, Dave. Do you happen to remember what that?
The Elemental.
Yeah.
Yeah, that uses Zixi.
Right, and I mean, how fast is that? Is that? I mean, it's not going to be fast enough to do anything. You wouldn't be able to do IMAX and video up and back. Yeah, no. You're not going to be able to do much of anything that way.
It's a quality over time, over latency preference.
Exactly. So things like that. I mean, yeah, the beauty of sending your production to the cloud might be great. Your stream. So that you have the stability of AWS or something, but you just can't beat latency. Latency is a thing.
I think what may happen is we may get to a point where we can push 3 or 4 camera feeds from a live site and then have someone remotely switch a stream either in the cloud or in their home studio. Sort of like remotely possible on the console side, or they're controlling a switcher remotely. That was a discussion office hours this morning, but you're a beat off,
Right. Yeah. So yeah, you send your raw feeds up and let somebody else switch it in the cloud and then send it out and again, that's fine because the person watching from home on their laptop isn't seeing the live person in the room. So that would just be the same as what we're doing these days. Of course, as soon as I talked about the cloud, Jeff Keithley piped in on Facebook. Crazy talk this cloud stuff. I'd be interested. Jeff's kind of we'll have to bring Jeff back on sometime soon and talk more about how the cloud is going to play a part in hybrid production, and if the cloud stays completely on the virtual side of hybrid, or is there some intermixing? Is he going to still bring in remote callers from the cloud and beam them, do all the, dressing them up in the cloud, but then send them to the venue off of AWS or something? That would be interesting to talk about and get his thoughts on that. So maybe we'll see if we can get Jeff, if he's not too busy these days. I'm sure he is, to come on in and talk about some of that cloud stuff again.
I'd be curious to go to a live event just to watch a stream. You know what I'm saying? How much of the appeal is that for people to travel in just to sit there and watch people all who didn't bother to travel in? I don't see that being a big appeal factor. Yes, you may get a keynote here or there, or someone at the last minute who couldn't make it. Like I mentioned, White House Chief of Staff, this crowd wanted to hear from that guy. But you're not going to draw a big crowd to an in-person event if it's just panel after panel that they're watching on a screen. They would just as soon do that at home.
I tend to agree with you. And I've heard actually like the contrary argument to that that maybe hybrids, will become production for stream, and then people will watch it on a stream. And I don't know. I don't see it. If people wanted to do that, like it would have been popular. How like movie theaters will show like some live event, some dance piece or something or some opera or whatever in a movie theater. Like I mean, I'm sure there was some market for that, but that's something pre-pandemic I never would have thought of going to, and post-pandemic I still don't think I'll ever end up going to. It's definitely interesting. But I mean, Justin and I have kind of talked about, and Omar touched on earlier with expos or things like that, like going to like the AES convention or NAB or one of those things. It's a lot of that is about whose hands you're shaking or socially distancing, fist bumping, I guess nowadays, or elbow bumps. But it's not as much about the show floor as it is the who you're seeing on the show floor and who you're talking to and catching up with. So I don't know. I agree with you, Dave. I don't think it's going to be interesting to go sit in a ballroom and watch a screen of something that's getting produced in a back room somewhere else down the hall or somewhere completely off site. I don't know. I wouldn't be interested in going that way. Maybe other people would. I tend to think also, younger generations would rather just, watch it here than go somewhere to watch it big on a on a screen, sitting distanced away, socially distanced from other people watching on the same screen. I don't know. Justin, do you have some thoughts on this?
Well, I mean, we're an hour and a half into the show, and I haven't said right tool for the job yet tonight. So, it's use case. I mean, I've been in venues to program things like, live or pre-recorded theater from across the ocean, and we do sell tickets. I do know people who want that. But yeah, are you selling it for concert or you're selling it in a ballroom? Probably not. So yeah, I think we're in an evolving world and an evolving industry right now.
I feel like if it's on a screen, it can be on demand. That's just my opinion. Maybe it's from my age and demographic, but I don't, it's hard for me to block out a set of time to do something that's screen based. I want to, if it's on a screen, then I want to DVR it. I want to watch it when I want to watch it. And then it's less participatory. I'll block out time for a live event, but not something.
That's how we've become as a society, though, with live streaming platforms like Netflix and Hulu and things like that, where nobody really cares what's live on TV anymore. You just go to those platforms and watch what you want to watch.
But I think one of the things at the expos is the tactile. Some of the conferences having the virtual expo booths, their sales are not as high because you want to see the product, you want to touch the product, you want to know what it does, not just watch a video about it. Some people like unboxing videos, everyone else goes, but yeah, I want to look at it. I want to see what it looks like. How heavy is it? What's it? Can I drop it on the floor?
I mean, imagine a virtual Comic-Con. Half the fun is seeing how everyone dresses up and the people.
They did that.
They did virtual Comic-Con, and it was not nearly. This year, Spooky Empire went back to live with social distancing because virtually it was not the same.
I'm waiting to hear about virtual Burning Man.
Well, I mean,
virtual Woodstock.
Yeah,
this is a discussion Ed and I had just the other day. Because we were arguing the point. Do people want to go back to live? And my position is, yeah, there's an audience experience. We've had the Super Bowl on TV and streaming for years, and people are going to go back and pay $3,000 a ticket because there's a dimension of that experience that we just can't deliver virtually.
But unfortunately, with some of the generation now, they don't look up from their phones long enough to have that experience. Everything exactly is looking at the phone. They don't look up enough. I mean, they are buried, and cell phone addiction is a real thing. And they're missing all the live experience because they're on their phones.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Is I do agree that there is a platform of people or a plethora of people that do want the live event concert experience of being in the crowd and being in the audience. I'm excited for football this year. I'm excited to go to a Dolphins game again, things like that. But there is, like you said, the generation below me. I mean, I'm 34. I'm younger than most of us here, except for Omar. And we can't we barely keep our phones out of our hand as it is. I mean, hell, Omar does work in the shower half the time, but that's what it's come to. They don't. I mean, with TikTok and Twitter and all the things, like you have these people who are TikTok famous. And I know we're going into a whole nother side of this, but on social media, that they're famous for 60-second snippets. And that's what the younger generation is ingesting, is they're making these people go viral because of something they did in 60 seconds.
But that's just it. They have a 60 seconds time span. How many of them are going to go to a live show and actually interact?
Yeah, I think it might become a challenge for the live. I think a lot of live events are going to become semi-hybrid just for the people in the audience who are glued to their phone. Imagine going to a live event, but everyone's looking at their phone. But maybe it's an opportunity for the production company to have a portal that is feeding maybe real-time captioning or, speaker profiles or additional information live, pushing it out throughout the entire thing to keep people off their own social media and focused on the event at hand.
So we have a couple great points and questions that are coming in. Robert Seeley on Facebook said, do you not think that the hybrid gives the potential for a bigger reach to audiences that can't make it to the in-person event? I'm talking about real hybrid, where the remote guests can be brought into the in-person event to actually ask questions and have conversations with the panels.
Well, that's kind of what we're doing right here, right now, and that's where most of the corporate events are coming in.
I think a lot of the talk we've had so far was two-way, was remote presenters coming into the hybrid event and then being shown to the live audience and then streamed out to the virtual audience. But this is also talking about bringing virtual attendees in to the live space
I just did that at an event I did recently. We had 3 presenters in-house, and then we had 3 presenters on Zoom. And the 3 presenters in-house were able to take questions from the Zoom audience and answer those questions live from event to remote.
But the Zoom audience was put on screen for the in-person audience also?
Correct.
Okay.
I think that's a real power upgrade for in-person and hybrid / in-person only events, is to be able to offer that hybrid full experience where people can participate remotely, not just by viewing it 2 seconds later, but by participating.
Right. Now, dealing with latency on that end is another whole thing. The between the live audience and the virtual audience with the Q&A, that's something we're just going to have to manage and learn to get creative to cover, basically. A lot of stingers, to bringing in those virtual people, something to spice it up a hair before they get on screen. But I think there is real potential for reaching much larger audiences through hybrid and virtual. I think all the clients I'm working with currently are seeing much greater audiences in full virtual the way we're doing them right now. So I wholeheartedly agree with this statement from Rob. And putting that together is the next thing. Omar, you got something for us?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm coming in clear, but I mean, to your guys' point, look at the Tony Robinsons, the Grant Cardone. That's what they're doing. They're just doing it on steroids. I mean, they're doing these massive meetings, and they're bringing in the audience to the meeting to talk with them, and they're talking back. It's kind of like it becomes this one-on-one conversation. And a lot of the ways that I've sold myself recently, because of what we do here, is I'm kind of like a hype man on the shows that I go on, and I try to bring in the audience, like interacting on the chats, being on here, talking to them and getting hyped up, and then bringing those into the live feeds so that the audience members can see each other and vice versa. And honestly, I mean, you add a wireless mic into your system, and now the audience can interact back and forth. I mean, it doesn't take a lot. And you think of the way we did it back in the day. Now all you're doing is taking one feed, bringing it to your VMix machine, whatever machine you're using, and now you got a two-way interaction. You pop, the way we do this, and we pop each other up individually. I mean, that's really what it's about. I think going forward, if and when done correctly, that's the selling point for a lot of these things. That I think, Ed, you knew when we first started this, that was the biggest thing about the training, is it wasn't a two-way conversation; it was a one-way, and that bothered us a lot. That's why when we started our thing, it was like it has to be two-way conversation, because no one wants to sit and watch a meeting and just be told something, and I can't ask questions like that. That's not learning. I'm just watching a video. I might as well, like Dave was saying, have it on demand and watch it when I want to watch it, not do it live, because I can't interact.
And we're going to be turning out high school students who are doing this in their school video production, who are volunteering at their church, and their churches are pushing this. We're going to have a whole legion of people who have this experience and desire to do meetings this way in the next 2 years.
You already have it now. You honestly already have it now, and it's how I got involved again, with the whole turning to hybrid and being a stream engineer type situation, and how I really full-heartedly got involved in AV as a whole was because I was literally doing what you guys were doing in full production setup from one computer at home going out to the world. The Twitch streamers, there's 13-year-old kids who are out there streaming on Twitch that are controlling their own audio, their own video, their own camera feed, making it all look good and putting it out there for everybody to see. So you already have that happening now.
And that's going to be a position that's added on to the live experience really quickly and easily.
Exactly. And, and people are like, oh, well, that's a one-way street. No, because you have a chat that's talking to you and communicating with you and things like that. So I'm actually, and this isn't a plug, but I'm actually, now that football season's back, I'm huge into football. I'm going to start Tuesday mornings, a podcast for football. You know what I mean? So I'm going to be the talking head, but there's going to be a chat there to ask questions and relay back to me and things like that. So these people have been doing this, 7-9 years already. They're already been, and that's what the conversation me and Omar had was, can you come in and help me here? Because you're doing what we've done on a full boat on one computer from your machine and controlling everything. Yeah, I have. Granted, I don't know as much as you guys do as far as all that's concerned, or let's put it this way. I didn't think I knew as much once it was broken down and seeing everything handed out. It was like, oh yeah, it's the same way this works, or it's the same way that works. You know what I mean? I knew a lot more than I thought I knew. But people are doing it now. Anybody who streams to Facebook or YouTube or does YouTube videos or anything like that, they're already doing what a full production crew could do in their home on a computer. Now, the quality might not be as good. As far as what I mean by quality, like stingers and transitions and things like that, it might not look as good, but they're able to control their video, they're able to control their audio, they're able to control their camera and do everything from one centralized location and put it out for the mass to see.
Back to hybrid events, I think to be a minimum successful event, we need to create at least 3 MEs mixes to make a good view for the Zoom audience, and then interactive view for the speakers, and then a clubbed one, which is for the event recorders that they'll be using for the marketing point of view. So I think that will make it the most interactive as far as hybrid is concerned.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, totally separate.
3 different mixes.
Yep, for different audiences, yeah, and different purposes, absolutely. Where before we were kind of just sticking a camera in the back of the room, and that was what they got. So, sorry, Omar, what were you saying?
I was just saying, I agree with that 100%. I think that's the way it's got to be when you're doing hybrid right. It needs to be a separate team with its own kind of agenda. Like, we're doing the same show, but the stream gets its own attention because it's for, like the best way I think I was explaining to it, and again, maybe it's wrong. Live events is theater, right? We're doing a show, but it's a theater. Streaming is like broadcast. We're producing something that is for a one-on-one person, because I'm at home watching off my monitor. This is a one-on-one interaction. That is produced totally different than it does on a live event where there's people around you, there's energy around you, people can interact and stuff. When you're just one-on-one, and then that content has to be a little bit different to keep you engaged into the screen, like a broadcast versus a theater play. You wouldn't do those the same way, and I think that's when you have to separate, like you said, like that. If it's going to be done right, that's what needs to be done. It needs to be a separate team that focuses just on that, on the pre-production and the post and then everything from the live side, because it's a whole other ballgame. Even when we go back to it, it's still going to be, if done right, a separate section. I think is what it should be. If they try to combine everything under one umbrella and just have it like an afterthought, like it was before COVID, then you're just spending money for nothing.
Yeah. I think we're going to have a lot of talent, young talent, coming into the AV industry out of this pandemic, vMix tribe of users who are going to be able to come into live events with all the old school live event folks and say, we're going to add this broadcast element to this live event. And they're going to be able to knock it out of the park, and they're going to be able to do it as a one-man show. And it's just, but the new thing for everyone's going to be figuring out that collaboration, figuring out where, one person's job starts and one person's job ends. I think that's going to be the work.
As long as they can put their phone down long enough to get a job done.
Yeah. And I don't know, Dave, I think the way, people want to book it, it's not going to be hard to figure out where one person's job ends and one begins, because it's all going to be just one person. They're gonna everyone has to do everything. One person has to do all the jobs. Which brings a good point that Michael Fraley brought up here in Zoom. He says the way the production company's phones are ringing now, there will be so much live production, we won't have enough people to support the events.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm already seeing that by the number of calls I'm getting that I have to turn down because I'm already booked on other stuff. So, and I'm hearing that at least locally where I am, some similar, similar kinds of things. So is that what you're experiencing, Dave, or?
Absolutely. Yeah. I just got a call tonight for a job on days I'm already booked. And, and I'm trying to rack my brain of who could, drive to that job locally because they want a local camera op. So, I think a lot of live guys either retired or they took another career path, or they're content with stimulus money for the next few months or whatever it is. And there's just like the restaurant industry. Every restaurant I go to is now hiring windows or hiring waitresses and servers and cooks. I went to Chili's. The bar was closed at the Chili's because their bartender, they couldn't keep a bartender. And it's because that stimulus check came out and everyone, put a down payment on a new car, or they're not going to go to work for a month. So, when the live event industry dried up, a lot of people left the industry. I wrote an article on LinkedIn about, finding your passion and whether you should plan to return or find something new. Have you found something new? Now's the time for reassessment in that.
Might I add, I did read that article and it was a very good read. I do have to say that it really was. It opened things that I was like, I thought obviously we think of, but at the same time it was like, well, you're not wrong. And that's where we're at right now, is most people who were in live production or live events, when COVID hit and everything shut down, they moved over to other, industries. And they're like, I'm not racking, I'm not, doing all this. My paycheck's here every week. I'm not waiting for net 30, net 45, or waiting for the next gig to come up or anything like that. They're like, and then they don't go back to it, and that's what it's come to. And I wholeheartedly agree. We're not going to have enough workforce to go back live.
Well, from another perspective, sometimes it's communication. I'm in-house and we have nothing, and our company is sporadic on communication, and most of us are not back yet. And so people had to do other things. They had to find another way to make a living because they couldn't. No, we still don't know. They still haven't said, we're going to bring this back or that back or the other thing back. So people can only wait so long. And in Florida, where the unemployment system was so screwed up and so many people weren't getting what they needed to, they had to find another path. There was nothing else to do.
Yeah, they just couldn't wait in limbo,
right?
For over a year.
And some people are still in limbo.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's a tough situation, but hopefully we can all get back to work in some capacity as things start to open up. And, hopefully some of the people who might have left the industry, maybe they get tired of that job at Amazon or wherever they went. And, because I know a lot of people who ended up, that's what they did. They went and they're like, hey, I've been driving box trucks in Manhattan to deliver gear forever. I can go drive an Amazon Sprinter van, no problem. And that's a completely valid, and there was the work. They had the work. So it'd be great to see some of those people come back. I hope that they do. I hope it makes more sense for them to come back or not. But I think all of us are going to be, really focusing on our plans for the future, just in case, like our backup plans. I think this was a big wake up call for everybody. Nobody expected this. And I think we've all developed, I think a lot of us, especially the viewers here and the people who are, really working on their skills and who have pivoted and still working, have developed new skills that'll hopefully carry them through if something like this happens again.
Jumping off that a little side rabbit trail is the curiosity of what rates are going to do for AV guys and girls.
That is a concern because companies have less money. They want to spend less money. They want to hire fewer people.
And, if there's a low supply of live event folks, especially experienced, seasoned live event folks, is that going to drive rates up, or is, they're going to be this dip where there's been no work for so long that everyone's just going to race to the bottom with the lowest rate so they can get the job.
And that's the fear, that the rates are going to drop because people are desperate.
Yeah.
Oh, we've talked about that right here on this show and on the podcast itself, where you don't drop your value. You hold your value, because then when things start coming back full swing and you say, this much money, and they're going to go, well, you did it for this. And it's like, yeah, well, it's not that anymore. So hold your value. Don't devalue yourself. You only can take so much, obviously.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I don't know if I want to get too into it because this will take us down a rabbit hole. We have 3 more questions left.
Let's get to them.
But you know what? If I can say one thing to everybody, try to hold your rates at least to where you were. We don't need to create a race to the bottom because the clients already will try to drag us there. So, hold as steady as you can. And I think I'm gonna leave it at that. I'm gonna leave it there for now. This is maybe this is a podcast talk we can have, or we'll revisit this. We'll plan a whole 2 hours to talk about this kind of thing, but we'll figure it out. So Chris, we got a couple of questions left.
Yes, we do. So I'm gonna address one really quick. That Pete, I do not know how to pronounce your last name. Can you make your own website to stream copyrighted music to? No, you cannot, unless you acquire a license to play copyrighted music, like a radio station, and show that on that website. That website can be in violation of copyright, and you can be sued and shut down. That's a quick answer to that one.
You can ask Napster, right?
Yeah, exactly. What happened to Mixer? It was WebRTC. Mixer is no more. Microsoft sold it off to Facebook Gaming. So now it's been swallowed up by Facebook Gaming. Facebook Gaming is not WebRTC anymore. They are on their own platform. And might I say, the algorithm itself, as much as we do here and we thank them for hosting us here, their algorithm for actual stream live production when it comes to stuff like that is horrible. That's just my opinion, and it's stated statistically in facts that you can see yourself. And VR streaming, there is a new wave of VR streaming that is coming. It is very expensive to set up right now. I know 3 people who do it. They do Twitch VR, and now I'm not talking about they stream VR games to you for you to watch. No. They have these motion sensors and these 3D imagery set up in their living room or in their stream room, and it picks them up in 3D and presents them out to you in 3D. If you have a VR setup there, you are able to interact with it in a 3D setting. So it is there. It is, but it's their stream rooms upwards of $100,000. Nobody's got $100,000 to throw into a stream room.
Yeah, I don't VR. I don't know about, but like I could see some room for AR down the line, augmented reality, where your phones are getting much smarter and sophisticated, and maybe you could interesting. Maybe you could stream things in in AR and have interactive experiences that way. We'll see. I don't know. Dave, do you have any thoughts on this, or anything with like using Unreal Engine or doing 3D kind of stuff beyond like virtual sets that we see in vMix?
Yeah, I think it's kind of gimmicky, but I feel like when I'm talking about VR and AR, I'm just an old man. But even the young folks that I talk to, yes, past the gimmick. I mean, playing a VR game is amazing, but I think just consuming content, it's going to be too heavy of a lift to do that on a large scale, and too heavy of a lift on the viewer to be able to consume it. So it'll be a niche.
Even in a 5G world?
Even in a 5G world, people aren't going to want to. I mean, even if it's a cardboard box you strap your phone to, or Google Smart Glasses, like you said, I could see AR taking off because it could add value with directions and finding products and finding services and a restaurant, review or whatever, seeing the menu of the restaurant in your glasses. I could see AR all day in a 5G world for sure. But VR is this immersive thing, and your eyes and your ears eventually get tired of taking the whole weight. And there's too many people that are touchy-feely and kinesthetic and want to feel the other senses.
Yeah, and just to tack onto that for the VR side and how much it takes, the two people that I know that do VR streams online right now, they have 2 fiber bonded lines to their house run by 2 different service companies. One is solely to run the VR room, and one is solely to run the stream. And they use the bandwidth. The stream bandwidth is completely tapped out at the 1 gig. So,
yeah. Well, now, in production and producing movies and things like that, sure. But I think end user and, content on the level that we're doing it and stuff, prosumer to consumer, I think it's way far away. There'd have to be some big leaps. We're going to see hoverboards before we see that.
When am I getting a hoverboard? I want a hoverboard.
No, I want a hoverboard. Maybe a jetpack.
Great.
I'm waiting for drone deliveries.
Yes.
Drone deliveries, yeah. Cool. Well, we covered a pretty wide gamut of topics tonight. If there's any maybe like last words from the panel, it's just after 9 o'clock. I didn't want to miss out on any of the questions, but no, if there's no last words, then Pete, DJ PJ, he wants a hover car. So, as he said on Facebook, so I think that would be cool too. I would even take just what are those things called? What are the things that float with an air, like an airboat, but it's like it floats on a thing of air.
Oh yeah.
The hovercraft?
Hovercraft. Yeah. It's not a hover car. It's like that sounded too stupid to be.
Where we're going, we don't need roads.
Exactly. I would take one of those. I want to take a ride on an airboat. I mean, man, that's I'm fine with that kind of stuff. But yeah, so thank you to the panel. Chris, do you want to really quickly tell us what you got coming up on your if you have any streaming stuff happening or?
Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. Eastern on twitch.tv/ToxicBiowolf. Still doing the Extra Life promotion, and any personal donations to my page go to buying Nintendo Switches for the local children's hospital. That happens every day, no matter what time of the year it is, what time of the day it is. And like I said earlier, we'll be moving into, if you're into the National Football League or any type of football, and American football, might I add, nothing against soccer or football as everybody calls it. But if you're into American football, we'll be starting a sports podcast.
Yeah, if you're keeping up with any of the soccer football stuff, I think crazy stuff's been happening in the last week or two. I'm not a big fan, but all of a sudden,
I stay away from it. It can get very intensive.
Yeah, seemed pretty interesting. Also, make sure you tune in on Wednesday night. Omar dropped off, but tune in Wednesday night for the AVE podcast. I'm sorry, I don't know exactly what he has coming up, but I'm sure it is awesome, as it is always. So join that conversation. You can make sure. I don't think I put the Discord link in today. Make sure you join us on our Discord to continue the conversation, because we've got channels there. We've got a whole community of people who you can ask questions to, and people reach out to me all the time and say, "Hey, I need to do this," or I need somebody who knows something about that," and then I'll tag people, and we just make connections and network. So join us on Discord. We keep the conversations going between our episodes when we're here every Monday night. Again, thanks to the DVE store, dvestore.com. That's how we get to come to you in 1080p, no matter where you watch. If you watch on Zoom or on Facebook or on YouTube, you get the same great quality. So make sure you check out DVE store and tell them thanks for sponsoring AV Tech Talks, because they would love to hear that. So with that, again, I just want to thank our panelists. A few had to drop off, but thanks, Chris. Thanks, Iris. Shrikant, always a pleasure. Justin, great to see you. David, thanks for coming back. I don't think I've ever called you David. Sorry. Dave.
That's fine.
Yeah. Andy, who was here earlier, and everybody else who joined us today. Thank you guys. Appreciate it. And we look forward to seeing everybody next week, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll say goodnight to Facebook and YouTube. Catch you guys later. Thanks.